your personal power, or anybody's who's listening, their personal power is really where a sort of agreement is. Yeah. And someone totally is focusing on gaining agreement. Yes? Just gaining agreement.
Oh, okay.
A gained agreement. Yeah. The brain is playing more and it cuts off whatever projected conflict was. Yes? Where somebody's in their personal power, it's equal to formlessness and they're not seeking conflict. Yes? And yet, like, where someone is, they are going through life and they cannot necessarily sometimes make decisions easy because of inner conflict between parts, sort of thing. Yeah? So preferred modes of sorting information could be congruent, couldn't it? Meaning it's parallel what you say and what you do. And it's integrated because it's coming from interest. And it's in the present versus someone's telling someone else that they are in the future or in the past. It's like something is present, which is more powerful. And that's being with awareness and not knowing or being with knowing or anything. It's just being empty, having empty and having care. That's what eye-awareness is. So somebody says, am I eye-aware? So you're just falling into emptiness in your centre and having care. And so you quick, smart, see if that's the case. It's just a question you could ask. Otherwise, somebody could be less than being in agreement, yes, and less than being in agreement with condition, yes, but just polarising. I don't, I can't, should, try, but must only, and everything that's obscure and disadvantaged and doesn't fit. It's a bit funny. So seeking agreement really is like you can feel that in the physiology of the person. Yes? Does that make sense?
You can feel it like when...
Well, somebody could be saying stuff, but they're not aware of their body language itself, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the body language, yes, so the body language could advantage you, couldn't it? Yes? Your body language could really be fitting rather than polarizing and causing a greater obscurity. Yes? And so even somebody's language might care or their intention might, but their body language not. And somebody could be saying yes, but shaking their head no. At the same time, that's the simultaneous incongruency. Sequential would be where somebody says yes and then after that they say no. You see? So it's sort of really examples of where one should be more seeking agreement, and that's more true healing therapeutic because it's really all what's carried out more as a pattern ongoing, yeah?
Yeah, for sure, that makes sense.
So, yeah, for people listening, they could wire in a new behaviour generator which is totally focused on agreement, and they could look to see where people are seeking agreement, and you could see the benefit of what this is. And so power really is your ability to get others to do things for you. That's your personal power, yeah? And so something is precognitive long before anything comes along. But often people have got a group speak. That group speak could have been given to someone to pressure them or hypnotise them into a certain program. And all, religions do that a lot. And they have ways to have group speak, and so they're asking people to individually do things and go on a course which, like, to war or to do something that's like this, which is totally against their individual sense of things. And yet they're going to go along with it. Why? Well, because they have such a power to hold on to being, in union with others where they are. And that's so powerful that it can take over what somebody's self-autonomy is. And while somebody's has been yanged or cloistered and not allowed to actually see what the rest of the world is, speech could often be done more where decision-making and strategy is, but yet sort of come from obsessive-compulsive behaviour where people are prejudiced. And so that group speak is, oh, this is what you do. Like, for instance, if they took you away from your father, for instance, they don't want you to know anything about that for sure, but not even act upon anything like you have this. And so it's evident in someone's choice that a choice could be existed that doesn't exist, where something is psychologically muted and missing, and then where someone's alienated, they become the X in group speech. And then so anything that comes along, anybody does any good who's alienated, as a parent, for instance, it's just looked upon as that something that you did which is bad, yeah? And you can't do good. And forever and a day you'd never do good, because there's something obsessive compulsive was put underneath as a prejudice so deep, where somebody's a child and so they can say, I feel really happy not speaking to you, sort of thing, which is positive. You've got to think about what the value behind all things are. So if you value things, this really discharges criticism, yeah? So you're valuing, what's the value of what goes on? And now you're more in a power, okay? Yes? And you have happiness, and it's more a lifestyle, a life story versus a love story. And you're really more optimistic, you've got more what's irregular that you can correct. And the things where the conflictedness is, people could have valuing, and it's sort of valuing, you're sort of wondering, what is the value of what this is? And then you're bringing things up to a greater value, you see. So typically, like, the vestibular sense is forward, back, up and down, and you only have access to this if you're polarised to your own first attention, and you're empty, you see. And now you have capacity to stop, start and redirect. That's your vestibular sense. And so where somebody offers a strategic non-response, that's really good. You could learn how to do that, where someone's was trying to polarise you, where behaviour is. You could have a strategic non-response, so that you're not there to be playing that game, sort of thing. But managing criticism really is an art, because most people don't know how to do that, but you've really you can by valuing. And where conflict is, like war is at the moment, where people are themselves, but they have a pattern to be able to resolve things. And the protectedness, where anything is overprotected or underprotected, but conflicted as a part, that's gained value. And what is the value? And what's the highest order where something is, where this is its valued, you see, rather than polarised to. As somebody then can look in more a neutral ground to see a choice that can exist, that didn't exist where some direction was put, because group speak actually caused something to be muted out fully that wouldn't be ever, even if it were actually offered, seen to be as some greater, better being. But certainly, like, where someone is, the greater effort would be, for instance, like a child to be joined with their parent and have interdependence. And often, like, because self-autonomy was taken away as a child, that's the only thing that somebody really cares to do. And in spreading their wings, it's only that they must have to sort the conflict out. But often going to Abilene, it means that you're going to go somewhere where nobody's going to agree with any rules to follow forward with them. And they're going to have a challenge, which is to be able to manage any disagreement. And so, truth always is just kind of which is mutually beneficial, yeah? And innovation really always comes from a committed few, and always change really is from a band of these committed few, which really is a positive inductive economy at the end of this, and not negatively inducted at all. But the real estate is you and I, that's the value, and it's unlimited, versus something fixed like gold or something else, and all movable sorts of assets like that. But you and I, we're the real estate and have an account, and it's positively inducted currency. And so everything is really something in perpetuity as a value, and something in having an intrinsic value, And that's how a currency is between ourselves, and what's an unlimited worth. Or all of this could be received in as an account from an account, which is paid for, and you've got something there for the next 210 years more to be compensating everybody for all the fiasco that's gone on, and not having had capacity to ease of ability to pay for things or have proper currency disperse. Inflation, deflation doesn't exist. Those are all things which can be corrected and healed. And what's the reason to bribe people if they're given to? And this is called republicing the debt. This is called revenue. And it's the pen that's mightier than the sword, of course, because innovation really is always from small, subtle, noticed events and things, but brought to light more of us. We could have verified we're raising currency for a unique project, and that's spent equal to product and service, so there is no inflation. Yeah, so you could think of a lot of things how something could transpire. But if you're ridding any collective fallacy, really an urge, as we just started out talking about, can be a real urge to conform, and to have been so strong, that urge, most people go along with things and don't even think about actually that's the right course at all. That's the Abeline paradigm, which Abelgate means you are only having the Pope be the one who's connected to God and can connect with things, and that everybody else has to be a subject to that. That's what Abelgate means. Abeline is the lack of ability to be able to manage disagreement and going into such. And it's a fear of not being able to have any voice, of course, and any voice dissent, and any non-alignment more where the group is and the group think. And so members all come to a uniformity more. And so, it's not a proper gained efficiency, but you and I, but yet with agreement, we could look at valuing and see and be able to heal where conflict is, and not have to have some conflicted part, which is some organised dysfunction. So most can be just only having thought that where they are is organised dysfunction, and some escape, and where the escape is an artificial womb, and it certainly is organised dysfunction. And so the collective fallacy that everybody really is a failure to manage agreement. Anybody could, listen into the background where things are, and they can hear sort of like if language is like flowing and it's smooth and it's sort of like slightly slurred, because that sort of is a language of pleasure and interest. And then when you hear all speech which is overdrive, it's all coming from aversive physiology inside non-stop. So it really is taking a look at the note that you're using, and is there sort of an up and down a bit somewhere there a bit, so it's not just a flat straight more or less. Taking action sort of is quite a contradiction often, and though the highest intention is there, it's actually raising that issue about the highest intention is that all things being satisfied where something is a choice being made as an outcome. Groupthink could have an agreedness collectively, also individually, to what one wants, whereas Abeline paradox, no one agrees really with the collective decision, you see, and that's what that means basically. So if you manage disagreement, of course, you're arresting your first attention, you're polarising to that, like we said, and you're sort of falling silent, and you're got back to stop, start and redirect, where the vestibular sense is. And the purpose of the paradox more is sort of less is actually more, and more is actually less, and that's sort of a condition which is sort of something which isn't able to be satisfied. And so in the beginning is the end, and that's sort of like speech examples, more or less, of someone who is conflicted and doesn't really have a proper neutral setting. And that's sort of an example of group speak sort of thing, types of things that people would be saying or doing. But it's an inability that's being programmed for you or I or anybody to not be able to manage disagreement. And so it's an absolute dysfunction. Abilene is like a metaphor for, it's like an end of an order, and it's like what the dysfunction is, and you can look and see what that is. But it's really a continuous adaptation that someone has to do, where Abilene is to manage the environment non-stop shifting and shifting constantly the ground. And just like a black swan has knocked the nation over, its governance and all rises more from their capacity to be able to respond to things. And mixing corporations up and giving great value to them and not the living, it's really a form of fascism, you see. And so an alphabet soup plan doesn't have any central organised nervous system where you or I do, that we can always, by valuing what's important, we can really be focused on clearing up any conflict that arises, because a map of reality could be far more generalised, or things deleted or included, or construction of how you've constructed things. That's a map that you have inside. Could be really enriched, yes. Otherwise, it's really could be not delegation for anything done, but abdication, where somebody's being asked to do something but they can't really do that. And to avoid sort of that Abilene paradox, you're sort of really gaining back your own self-autonomy and looking to see how you can do that and growing that value up where it is. So as you can see, you also can have the interdependence to go forward where you are. So those are things which isn't conflicted. And so you're identifying all the groupthink, which was and is, and it's really opposite what should be, what's proper as a proper culture. It's only that somebody outside that groupthink, which has another type of groupthink, can somebody be caused to feel there's another way to think about something total. But so one thing somebody could do to really be gaining back their self-autonomy about this is to really avoid that Abilene paradox by identifying groupthink and what's opposite, and what's opposite to proper culture. So you're creating avenues to voice concern where matter is, and finding a neutral ground to actually talk about the subject of things. And so that's something which people come to have more deeper inside themselves. And we're configuring more where groupthink is. It's really more triangulation, where other type of culture which has a different sort of way of thinking about something, like, for instance, children should have their self-autonomy right from the get-go. It shouldn't be something that's taken away from them. And where interdependence is something was never given, that's not proper function, you see. So you're letting agreement be more where consensus building, decision making is, and you're really avoiding more the groupthink language. You're making room more inside yourself for valuing what choices somebody's made, and you're looking at what the value is there and looking at what other choice is existing that gives the same value or even more. And so that you can gain the better value by growing things up in choice, by valuing things and what's the highest value that can be achieved that's over the top of it all. And so now you're stopping all the pluralistic sort of ignorance that could have been going on, and groupthink, where members would have all agreed and some core expected condition, like Abilene paradox, where individuals privately disagree with the group's collective decision, you see. And so it's by pressure ongoing where something is, which that you could look at that. You could say, how come what's the reason why pressure is? Or if you could see self-censure, no, you can't think about things in another way, or you can't do anything else, and this is the only thing that you can do, and you don't have any other way, meaning that where's this talk about all the resources that somebody really does have? So something else as a choice is far different than what somebody had self-censorship about where they are. And it's really you or I seeing the inability where someone is to have managed or agreement and to really have capacity to be able to manage conflict. One can't be in the lack of the capacity to manage that. There's really a want to do a single thing more And you can only follow one master. You see, you can't be following a couple of masters inside yourself. And so the Abilene paradox is like, yeah, the grass is going to be greener somewhere else. I mean, it's unknown and fraught with all sorts of things, but it's certain that it's not with any interdependence. Because why? Well, because I need to be independent, and that's what the group think that told me that, because they didn't say you have any support from your family or your father or anyone and such. And so it's odd, yet somebody could really see everything sort of as an adventure or excitement and spontaneity, but where you're not looking at something because somebody says, man, this is a really good adventure. Where is the contradiction, where anything is, where all things have remained, a lot, sometimes for a really long, long time, actually, you see. So, get on a bus to Abilene is a paradox of an action anxiety sort of thing, which is addicted in an accord, or where a belief is. And what's next to be done more is a members act and an actual to go somewhere where the members are not going to be too supportive or to be in any accord to have any logical continuum go on. And someone is running into what this is. That's what the Abilene paradox is about. I mean, where somebody is in that, you can't be a naysayer, you see. So it's sort of like what religions really do. Abelgate is the Pope is the one wherever you are on the earth, and he's the only one that could connect you to God, and everybody else is a subject under the Pope. But the urge to conform, like I said, is really strong, and the Abilene paradox is really where group speak is some collective plan that's given to people, so you've got to march off the wall. But that might be something you don't agree with inside, but you get off that way anyway. I mean, so it's really along where group think is, even where there's no proper condition that's existing. You've got two basic premises. You've got really an inability to cope with disagreement. You've got poor capacity for communication and conflict sort of sorted. So this, like what I'm talking about, isn't available to someone because they're not valuing anything, but it could be to just listen to this and change things around more for themselves. It's a priming more where groupthink has been, and where's the collective fallacy, wherever any of that is. It's like astroturfing. It's like painting like something is really a grassroots movement, when that doesn't exist at all. So the consequence of anything where efficiency really could have been is wasted and gone, and teamwork or your work really becomes alienated from what you would have achieved and recognised and acknowledged and grown in, which is motivating. And so, because that doesn't ever happen, it's like you've jumped into a paradox, and it's to stop a lack of proper efficiency, actions that would defeat, and the highest goal where somebody really asks, what's the highest intention that you could achieve by having that choice, you see. So they're overcoming more learned helplessness, because it's really a decor that's going on overall that you could look and see. Then you can see by interactions how many interactions somebody has versus somebody does not have any interactions at all, or the interactions only can be that the other parent, for instance, is alienated, and anything could be considered whatever benefit, even like all this language or discussion of anything as being rude, for instance. Neutral setting where anything is, it's just really a conflict where, because conditions can have existed where somebody's been alienated and some archetypes are going on, you see. So that's a way to check that out. It's sort of who's alienated really has some sort of archetype going on, and it's a barrier often for any of us to be able to gain essence, and it's learned helpless. So where a choice exists, it's not really getting taken, which it could, and so no matter how much good is done, it would never be recognised as good. It's not wanted, and so you see what self-autonomy is there definitely is without any interrelatedness and interdependence. And interdependence is really like a mutual lived assistance, and it's mutual lived assistance describes nature more, not somebody, I'm so independent, I'm going to kick butt myself or something. But the error of the terror, really, when you recognise it, acknowledge is that's one thing to clear away learned helplessness. And the other thing is really learning new ways to be able to love. These two parts sort of more coming together sort of clears away learned helplessness. So keep in mind, sort of a real technique, sort of valuing is far more, it's way what the Toltecs teach and what we do and what our work is. And you could look and read and things. You've got to see that it's sort of more that valuing is the things that you're doing. And so you're focusing on what's interest, what's pleasure, because that's actually causing you to be more in the frontal cortex, versus the Abilene paradox is a collective fallacy, which is really a course chosen counter to the preference of all, and and from some autonomous independence, but not autonomous interdependence. And to have a long group things where some want would be for the group more, but not you. It's just to become more useful for a group and such. An ability to value and agree rather than the inability to cope with fact. It's better to have conflict that's central to getting cleared up and being grist and valued versus conflict being central to dysfunction and not having those values ever valued up. I think, I don't know, maybe we could talk a bit more about this, but we could wrap things up just a bit so it's all sort of perhaps clear relative. But conflict is always rather than not is better, because pleasure and interest really could trigger whole brain patterning, and aversion really only would have triggered whole limited mind function. And what the choices someone has could be more total and more unlimited versus, no, this is very limited and I'm just going to go somewhere. But we could look at the conflicted part where relation is, and you could focus where autonomy really is relevant to someone's interdependence versus like their dependence, and that's stuck where something is. And this is really what the Abilene paradigm is really about. But the development in character where inner conflict is cleared away, and someone really has easy ability not to be kept as an anger addict or conflict seeker. So rather than hearing something, what the benefit is and the value to someone, they're only going to focus on what the conflict is, and they're going to have all those patterns, which is about anger addiction. But honouring love and listening and being deep more where somebody is fed more where through there's a better way, and that what's said you all can be more full silence more inside, and such is sort of valuing where something is going on like that, because you're really keeping a focus on what the meta or position over the top more is. Yes? So whole brain functioning is really interest and pleasure, of course, and stimulate whole brain patterning. Awareness really is where you're empty and you simply are in care. So where somebody says they care, oh good, but if they've gone into I don't care, well, that's limited mind function itself. So decision models should really be involving the senses, so kinesthetic, auditory, visual, but a lot of stuck states occur because only somebody's sort of more in the kinesthetic state and they really haven't got any, oh, that sounds right, that's really sounds interesting, to discuss, to mention, to admit, to explain, or auditory words, whereas to see what I mean, to get a clear perspective, to get a frame of reference, and to get an overview are all visual ways. And what representativeness of the senses are being used, because most stuck states occur because somebody's maybe not using their visual system like they really could, like, oh, I see what you mean. And now you've got the bigger picture. Or, well, when you do that, you're more in omnipresent when you do that because you're looking over something. So inductive process where anybody is really can apply open coding more and pass consensus more. And so you're looking at objection and you're looking at things more open. And otherwise, you're passing on a consensus of objection that's totally about a structural of violence instead. And do you know anything about this? I'd wisely look into what the Abilene paradox is about. Look into whole brain functioning. What's whole brain functioning about? What's eye awareness about? You could easily propose a strategy more where inconsistencies were prevented more and never had to come to be anymore because somebody's got more structural condition. But otherwise, a lot of operation is taken and it's total to structural violence instead. So does anybody listening know that you could give somebody instructions to have an anaesthetic before some surgery was, so that they could have that procedure and be fine about it? You know, I mean, it's a playback, which what is really getting on, where whole brain patterning is something ongoing, is coming from your emptiness of simple care. Otherwise, you're not in the moment. You've got something in your head. You've got something in your brain. There's a hell of a lot of internal dialogue going on, and you haven't met anybody actually that causes your own improvement to be. If anybody asks you what's your power, is it that you know that it's really your ability to be able to win friends and influence people? And how is it that one could avoid conscious objection, and also all the self-censoring? It goes on. It's like, oh, well, I won't do this, but I should. Or I won't do this, but I should. And it's really an emotional maturity, where somebody really is able to kind of just like turn everything down to about maybe a 2, so you could actually look at everything, in fact, you see? Yes? And valuing is really the most important thing, mate. Yeah, it really is. It's valuing so that you're getting a greater meta position. And so, you know, you're only otherwise looking at a pattern of procrastination that's evident, where conflict is really inside, and going toward conflict and supporting conflict versus having some union, having the greater purpose. And so chunking things down where something isn't to be looked at things, and valuing where any choice is really like something that can be changed. But it's certain that most people, where, like, for instance, are taken away from their family, what's the reason why 99% of most of these people never go back to their blood family? You could think there's a lot of reasons. Oh my God, it's so heavy. And some of the stuff which we're just talking about a little bit is really components of this. But synesthesias, where somebody can gain a new insight by being a different personality, or integrating things by a substitute, or having a complex equivalent where something is, you see, these are all valued ways of being able to look at something and get a different perspective, and simply valuing where the conflicting part is, and taking a higher meta position that's over the top of what that is, and growing the value by valuing that autonomy up to come to be back where you are in interdependence with your own self-autonomy. And so now somebody isn't conflicted, but they have their interdependence and also their self-autonomy. Otherwise, somebody's just not getting a life. They're trying to get a wife, or that's about a love story instead. But when you or I or anybody really is able to view some opposing desire and motivation, a physiological sort of tension could have all been going on where all of that would have been. And this, what we're just talking about, is what are you doing inside yourself, and what are you and I modelling? Yeah, mainly. Anyway, sort of, it's really about becoming more whole again.
I guess it's a little off topic, but like I said, I'm going to go in order of the people who sent them. And if you do want to get a question answered,
yeah, it's okay.
you could send.
Oh, we could be off topic. You just go ahead.
Okay.
Great. It'd be just a question and answer session always. Stuff's going to be at the back end of things. Go ahead.
Flat Earth. He says flat Earth.
Yes.
Question mark.
Should someone have a strategic? Oh, well, there's so many ways that somebody can manage stupidity, of course, right? Where, like, for instance, I'm not sure, like, could you say that, of course, there's no such thing as a bunny that lays eggs, for instance. Bunnies don't lay eggs. It's sort of confusing, because when you're young, maybe you're thinking, you see chickens lay eggs, but kind of you see that, eggs are connected to rabbits, sort of thing. I'm not sure. Somebody has to grow up, or you're just like having to not participate where someone is just not logical about anything. Yes? Right. Also, you think experiments could be made just so that everybody can just see how gullible that you are? Of course. And that's one experiment that was done to just see how gullible anybody is, yes? Okay.
This is from Sophia. in the United Kingdom. The Jub's Black Amber Glycolic. Did I already ask you that question?
Oh, I'm not sure. It's a question about the amber glycolic. It's a compound which has a nitrogenated terpenoid compound in it, which that triggers things within your body. And it's a major molecule which, if you get that parts per million, very small parts per million, it has such a marked effect on the body. It actually switches off aerobic glycolysis, which is inefficient energy system where lactic acid would have been produced and things. It switches that off because it's not efficient, and it switches back on oxidative metabolism. It helps correct neurotransmitters and things and such. So sort of sniffing it can cause someone to come out of a coma. You put a little bit on a fungus and it will eat the fungus up and heal the skin. Put a tiny bit of it, like a bead of it, into a ulcer. That's 3 years old. It'll heal it up. It'll help heal this up, you see. Yes? And so it's a purgative, so a small amount of this taken internally, learned how to with citric acid and bicarb shot. It's a treatment which could be going on and lasting within the body for 3 weeks, or more. And continuing to have an effect, you see. Yeah. And it's made from the skin of aloe vera and whole aloe vera leaf, yes, and rhodium, osmium, and ruthenium and thyme. Takes about a year and a half to make them or something. Yeah, it takes time, mate, yeah. Year and a half or more to make a batch of something that's like this. Yeah, so it's precious, right. And it's got black amber in it. Okay. What's another question, mate?
Okay, mate. Thanks. Yeah, I thought maybe it was like a code word for urine therapy. Because I did, like you said, snorting.
Oh, well, activating activating a formula can be done with urine kept in the fridge, yeah. And then you have your formula, yes, and you've activated with urine, yeah. So that's pretty amazing. Okay. What's another question? Yeah.
Okay, man. Encephalomalacia. Missing brain tissue from encephalomalacia.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder what they could be done about that.
You're stopping the insult that's occurred on the neurology of the brain. You're healing up the blood-brain barrier, and you're bringing in antioxidants which clear this up, and you're bringing in various formula we have that's incredible, like sulfur dioxide types of formulas, which are extremely powerful antioxidant, which produce energy. Otherwise, someone's healing this up with a life food, nutritional cleanse, job cell rejuvenation, and they're doing cast backs over the stomach and things, and someone has to absolutely stop all breathing through the mouth when they sleep, and they have to stop all high phosphate food and all methionine-rich food, and bring some formula in like we have, like brain alterative, or like you can get lion's mane and things, but you look into that a little and bring some things in to help the brain regrow. It could be clear up what's causing it, and that's all dead food begets dead, life begets life. One could learn more about this, yes. But these are conditions that all can get healed up. If somebody wants to connect in, they could connect with you to connect with me, yeah.
I think if we get a good sound clip, I can do something called a React. I think it's called a React video, where you post somebody talking about it and then your response. And so if you want, that'd be a good idea. The video, it reminded me to ask you, is fascia, it's a common terminology that people are using in today in the common parlance and online and stuff. They talk about fascia and athleticism. Is that the same as connective tissue?
What?
Is that the same as connective tissue? Is that the same as connective tissue? Is that the same as fascia and athleticism? Is that the same as connective tissue? 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 Is that the same as connective tissue?
Fascia. Yeah, fascia. Yes, fascia is connective tissue. You've got different layers of connective tissue, which most cancers and neoplasm forms from fascia and covering synovial fluid sort of material. Yeah. And then what? So fascia or work with fascia is sort of like deep tissue reconstructive bodywork, where you're going in and you're doing talking, using some torsion there, some pressure and torsion, but torsion mostly, sliding myosin-actin filaments away from each other and bringing them back together again, and clearing away all the cross-link fibres, yeah? Yeah, the cross-fibre linkage is really what goes on there. All kinds of oxidants are being divided, someone has not moved their muscles and things. The myosin-actin filament never actually came to its extremity much and things. There wasn't the body able to have neutralised, negatively neutralised so that you don't have a minus 71 millivolts per square centimetre cube in your tissue, which allows impulse that goes along your nerve to be able to be depolarised afterward. So where the muscle is able to relax and the nerve cells be able to depolarise, your muscles all work properly, but otherwise they become tired. And so various techniques that someone could learn, like deep tissue reconstructive bodywork, which is really incredible, which I taught that for some more 5 years on the road where I've been. But it's the work that I do where people are, and it's something which I use to help people heal and things. So fascia is really connective tissue, and you and I, receive information through our connective tissue. It's called the nociceptive system, and most of our sensation and things that we have more through our body really comes more through our connective tissue, and it's really like a nervous system itself, and you couldn't just say it's a secondary nervous system at all. It's really like more semiconductive in the way that it operates and things. Yeah, so. What else, mate?
That's amazing. Because I got a lot of benefit from all the teachings that you have been so generous with everything that you do, and I just try to do it all, including that treatment that you were just talking about, microcirculation.
Oh yeah, it helps improve microcirculation.
I just have trouble getting somebody to do my back spot. It's like right behind my heart, and I have a yoga hook, but I can't it doesn't like dig good, so I think I'm gonna take massage classes and ask my fellow students to help.
Well, the whole body could have been scraped down with black gold and all stone cleared away from the body, so no more stone. So somebody really doesn't have any more silent inflammation. Most people really have a lot of silent inflammation going on. And so, yeah. So when you get them dissolved, black gold and then scraping is terrific. And there's various treatments people could do, and that's absolutely outrageous. The glycolic, black amber glycolic, has everything in it as well, and that could be done internally, and some could be placed on the outside where injury is and be diluted, but it'll pull and clear up toxin and strengthen, and like you can put it on a cracked skin, for instance, that's really cracked out bad, and it'll heal it up, dissolve all the cracked skin, and completely bring it back to normal. Yeah, so it's quite radical. Where people use the black amber glycolic, they can clear up spots on their face and things. Yeah, it heals up the skin So you can put it on your face and sort of heals up the skin on your face. Yes. Quite considerable, in fact. Yeah, remarkable, matter of fact. Yeah.
Cha-ching. I want to be a good ambassador for the team. You know, I love you, Dr. Job.
Yeah.
Everything. So,
well, I appreciate all of our listeners and people tuning in. Please let other people know more about everything that we're going on here. And let's change what the group think is about everything. Yeah, because the group think is more whole brain pattern, more about someone's self-autonomy and interdependence and imbalance. I mean, things and such like this sort of really. But learning and passing the information on. There's such a wealth of information at jabdavid.com there, and certainly where you've got information there all stored, Lukey, from past stuff and things. Lots of stuff for people to browse and learn more about. Yeah. Anyway, mate. Okay, so we'll catch up to each other in a future show, eh?
Sounds good to me.
Love you, mate. Good on you, mate. Love you, mate.